Words have power, and they can determine the direction of a fight. So I want to talk to you about that today. When I say fight, I'm not talking about a gunfight or a fist fight. I'm talking about a fight for our rights. Saturday Night Special, assault rifles, gun violence. These are words that the anti-gunners, or phrases the anti-gunners have come up with to frame the course of the battle. And every time you use it, you are using their weapons against ourselves. Take gun violence. That's my current pet peeve. You hear about gun violence all the time. Common sense is another one. So gun violence. They are taking violence, which everyone is against, and linking it with guns. So by having that linkage, they are making guns bad because they are violent. And the thing is, every time I hear the word gun violence, I think, well, aren't we concerned about other forms of violence? We're not concerned with knife violence or fist violence. Notice you never hear those terms. It's always gun violence. You never hear about knife violence. You never hear about fist violence. You never hear baseball violence. So every time you hear gun violence, we're tying violence and guns together. We're making them the same thing. And you're operating on their terms. Violence is a separate thing from guns. And so think about that. And the reason I'm thinking about this is I was just interviewed by a conservative a radio talk show host, and he was using these terms. And he is as far from anti-gun as you can get, but he is using their terms. Another example, one of the first ones I became aware of, and this is back in the 80s, was Star Wars. You've heard of the term Star Wars in relation to Ronald Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative, which was that missile shield he wanted to build to prevent, at that point, Soviet missiles getting into U.S. airspace. And so he, came up with this project, this Strategic Defense Initiative. Now, the media was against it, and so anytime they're against something, the first thing they're going to do is frame the terms of the battle, and they did not use the term SDI, or Strategic Defense Initiative. They changed it to Star Wars, which immediately made you think about some fantasy science fiction thing that's not possible. Kind of makes it seem Mickey Mouse-ish or incredible, something that we're not supposed to take serious. It's not a movie, for Christ's sake. It's not something that is real. And by that one thing, they have changed the way people think about something. And that's the key there. Words have meanings. They have connotations. So when you hear a word, and you might have heard me slip in, I used a religious epitaph a few seconds ago, and while that slipped out of my mouth, it has a connotation different to different people and will invoke an emotional response. So do you get a different feeling from self-defense or Strategic Defense Initiative than Star Wars? And so they're manipulating the opinion of the masses, and they're doing the same thing when you hear, Saturday Night Live. I'm losing it here.
Of the masses.
Yes. The bottom line here is that words have meaning, and they have connotations to you. You've heard words all your lives, and you attach meaning to them. So when you hear Star Wars, do you have a different feeling about the project than if it were called the Strategic Defense Initiative? That sounds serious. Star Wars sounds like fantasy that I'm not supposed to take seriously. And so by using those words, they're manipulating the way the public, the masses, feel about something. They're changing public opinion. Same thing with gun violence. They're tying guns and violence together, and even the pro-gun people are using these terms to their own detriment. In the 90s, it was assault weapons. Well, there's no such thing as assault weapons. If I pick up something and hit you with it, I've assaulted you with it, it's an assault weapon, even though it was a rock I picked up off the ground. There's no factual thing that is an assault weapon. It came from assault rifle, and which is a select fire, weapon that has certain other features that make it an assault rifle, but those are not available for civilian use without going through a big process federally. But even pro-gun people will use the term assault rifle or assault weapon when they're talking about a class of rifles that are similar to military-style rifles. And every time we do that, we are letting them win. We're giving them ammunition in the battle against us. So think about these terms and don't use them. Instead of assault rifles, they are sporting rifles. And don't say gun violence. Don't use those terms together, because then they become linked in the minds of the people, and they, as soon as they hear gun, they automatically think violence. And the bottom line is here, if you're focused on the inanimate object, you're doing nothing to change the behavior, and it's the behavior that needs to be changed. If you look at Britain right now, they've pretty much eliminated firearms from daily life, but the violence is still there, to the point where they are seriously considering making points on knives illegal because there's so many stabbings. The shootings have been replaced by stabbings. They did not get rid of the violence, they got rid of the guns. So that's a little bit of a rant from me on terminology in the fight against gun owners. So think about what's being said out there and don't fall into the trap of using their words against us. I'm Peter Burlingame of the Self-Defense Initiative. Thanks for watching. Be safe out there.